And welcome to the College Chats podcast. Well, as we record this, it is but a few days from this year's national championship game, which is where we started this podcast 7 years ago as part of 99 Yards. So it should be no surprise that on this episode, we'll focus on the 2026 national championship game. But first, we are the chaps. I am George, and if you're watching this on YouTube, you will notice that I don't have my usual background because I am in Miami for the championship game. Given the grandiose nature of this game, I am joined by my co-hosts, the Simon and Garfunkel of the college football world. Yes, like a bridge over troubled water, Alex and Oli join me on this special episode of 2026. How are you both?
It'd be an extremely long bridge to cross the water between myself, Alex, and yourself, George. What a great way to start the podcast, reflecting on the fact that it's been 7 years since our first episode. I think, A, that's an awesome achievement, and B, to see where you're sat right now, covering the college football playoff national championship game from Miami. Just an incredible testament to the job that you've done in the last 7 years, my friend. So I'm very much excited to get down to business, talk some football, chat with Alex in the dark.
Yes, well, I am currently in the car on the way home from practice. And yeah, I can't wait to sit and chat it up. 7 years is crazy. To still be doing this and to have found two real lifelong friends out of it is a really, really cool thing. And I'm grateful for it every day.
Oh my word, it's got very emotional very quickly. Let's get into some college football chat. Um, we joked just briefly before we came on about who was in the national championship game, but I look back to some of the championship games we've talked over. Specifically, so 7 years ago. I was looking at the game that when you were in Louisiana, Alex, which wasn't 7 years ago, it was 6 years ago. LSU and Clemson. The year before was Alabama and Clemson, I think. This year we've got Indiana and Miami, and I know Ollie's good at his predictions, but if anyone predicted these were the two teams that were going to be in the college football national championship game, then I hope you've gone and put a lottery ticket on. So my first question, my opening question to you is, with all that's happened in college football, all the changes, NIL, the transfer portal, all of that stuff, is this the new world order? Is this what we're going to see going forward? Are we going to see, well, chaos, and we're going to see a leveling of the playing field where, in actual effect, it could be any team that gets to the national championship?
Yeah, I don't know if you're directing that to me or Alex, and usually one of us trips up over the other when we're left to our own devices. But I think we're already seeing it, right? There's an element of everything that has come in the 7 years that we've been doing this, and you touched on NIL, the transfer portal, eligibility regulations, and changes to when players can play when they've transferred, etc., etc. It is leveling the field. It's making an element of parity. Um, it's kind of stopping teams, not completely stopping teams, because you look at the playoff this year and the 12 teams that made up this playoff. You look at some of the championship games and you look at the SEC, for example, and there will always be those teams right at the very top of the sport. There will always be your Georgias and your Alabamas and your Ohio States. But this new era of college football, the landscape that we're operating in right now, definitely lends itself to parity. You can't hoard six five-star wide receivers on your roster anymore. One of those, two of those, three of those are going to go and play somewhere where they can play football. Because everyone wants to play football, and they have the opportunity now to guarantee that a team. So no one can hold and hoard, and that does make a difference in terms of who you see at the top of the sport year in, year out, consistently, repeatedly. And I think that's the big thing now. You open it up to a team like Indiana, who are just an incredible example of what college football should be. You open it up to a team like Miami, who has historically been able to recruit at a high level, but hasn't always turned that into an on the field product. And now they have to, right? Because if they don't turn those five-star guys into immediate impact players. That 5-star is going to go and play somewhere else. So I think you'll always have those teams right at the top that are built on reputation. And we haven't even talked about the dominoes that have fallen in those 7 years as well. Like a head coach like Nick Saban, that is landscape changing, because you can bring in Kalen DeBoer and all of a sudden Alabama has questions over it that they wouldn't have had with Nick Saban at the helm. So many different things for so many different programs. Clemson's inability to use the transfer portal, and look where they are now. It's just another testament to the leveling of the playing field. So I think it's awesome in so many different respects.
Yeah, I agree. I think the landscape changed. Saban retiring has had a way bigger impact, I think, on the sport than everyone understands. I think where those athletes would have gone to Alabama in the transfer portal had Nick Saban still been the coach, are now going, enough of those athletes are now going elsewhere, that it is leveling the playing field. I also think people underestimated just how good at this Nick Saban was. I don't think it can be underestimated, the impact he had and the quality of a coach that he was. And it doesn't surprise me that teams aren't able to build the dynasties that they were able to build, that Nick Saban was able to build. Because that takes a special person and a special group of people to do that, and to keep doing that at a high level for a long time. I also think this is quite a poignant national championship game. The story is kind of cool. You know, you've got someone like Carson Beck, who did transfer in at Miami, and then you've got someone in Mendoza for Indiana who, you know, to the casual fan, you know, maybe not to you, Oli, but to me, he kind of came out of nowhere this year. And as a program, they kind of came out of nowhere this year. And they're built with really good coaching, really good developmental coaching. And yeah, Miami is as well, but they've got that high-profile name that has transferred in. So it's a very new era battle for this national championship game, but also it's showing how much the changes have enhanced the game, despite lots of pushback from traditionalists when they were going through.
I think it may be a mix of a lot of things, because Ollie touched on the kind of the 5-star rankings that teams would traditionally have stockpiled, right? Georgia, Alabama stockpiled all the great players. So, you know, Alabama's Nick Saban had a conveyor belt of talent that he can roll out every year, and that's clearly not happening. But just there's been a lot of talk this last couple of weeks, because of Indiana, about the way in which players are ranked, teams are ranked. This makes sense, right? A player who was maybe a 3 or a 4-star player at the time that they were recruited out of high school isn't necessarily a 3 or a 4-star player, you know, year 2 of playing college football, quite simply because they've developed. And I think that's probably what Cignetti has done best, or better than anybody else, is he's taken a team that everyone loves to call the underdogs, but actually he's made a team of very, very good football players into national championship contenders. Just as a matter of interest, guys, who do you think is the more surprising team in this national championship game? Alex has said that Indiana have come out of nowhere, really, and they have. They had a very good season last year, but they've just stormed the field this year. Miami, we didn't think we were going to get to a national championship game, you know, 4 weeks ago, and here we are. Who do you think is the more surprising team in this national championship game?
Well, I'm gonna jump in and say Indiana, because from the outside perspective, we didn't have the data that would tell us their roster was going to be this good, and they were going to be able to put this much together this season. So, like you say, coming back to this ranking, these 4 or 5-star rankings that aren't present on Indiana's roster, the one thing those rankings don't get the opportunity to rank the kids by is their mentality and their ability to come in and be a great athlete. Yeah, they get to watch the video, they get to see them play in showcases and different things like that to rank them. but they don't understand how good of a grasp this kid has of what is really needed to be an elite athlete. And this is something that I'm obviously super passionate about coaching myself professionally. The basics, and you hear people talk about the basics all the time. I think the basics that every elite athlete has is that they get their nutrition right, they get their sleep right, they watch the game, they understand the game, they try and change and adapt and break the game a little bit in the way that they play. They try and be different, be creative. And actually, the kids at Indiana do all of those things, and they do them really, really well. And they've been able to maximize the talent that they have because of how they play. And there's no way me as an outsider, someone outside of their building, could know that they were good at doing that. They were going to be able to put together what they've been able to put together. But for them to put that in, the data shows for a team to go and win a national championship with the roster makeup they have to be elite off the field. And they obviously are to get to this point.
Oli, what do you think of Miami? Because Alex has talked a lot about Indiana. What do you think about this Miami team? Because as they've gone through the season, they had that little a couple of games mid-season where they had a bit of a bump. But it's going through the playoffs, they look a very, very difficult team to beat. Miami are deserving of this place in the national championship, aren't they?
I think they've showcased that in the last 4 weeks that they are deserving of it. And I come back to your original question, which was of the two teams who is the most surprising. And there's a lot, as Alex went into there, about Indiana that has surprised a lot of people. And I'll throw into it as well the Big Ten gauntlet. Like in the start of the season, if you'd have said Indiana would finish ahead of Ohio State, ahead of Penn State, ahead of Oregon in the race for the Big Ten championship, then people would have called you fucking mental, in all honesty. So with Miami, in the ACC, like I'll hold my hands up. I was super high on what I thought Clemson were going to be this year. I honestly didn't see a world where Miami was a better team than Clemson. And ACC is not a better league than the SEC or Big Ten or even the Big 12 in some respects. But so their route to this point was, to my mind, always one that was so much harder than a team like Indiana. And historically, we touched on it before, they haven't always done the best job, that program, similar to Texas A&M, of extracting the talent from, we touched on recruiting ratings. They've never managed to get everything out of all of those five-star players that they've got on those teams. And then you bring in a guy with Carson Beck, who we're going to talk about a little bit more in depth later on. But I think there's enough significant questions over Beck coming into this season, and even throughout the season to a degree, that would make you question Miami getting to this point. But I think they've proven, once they overcame those two obstacles, once they overcame that nail-biting Sunday where Notre Dame hearts were broken and Miami dreams were allowed to be realized, like once they're in, they realize and understand that they had to take this opportunity with both hands, and they have just shown that defense wins championships. In every game that they've played, they've had by far the better defense, and that's what's got them to this point. And that's leaning on some of those highly recruited, highly ranked high school guys and guys that they brought in the transfer portal as well, but real homegrown talent. And I think you're going to see a lot of that discussion and that narrative this weekend is how much homegrown talent there is on this Miami Hurricanes team. Now, whether that makes a difference when the lights are on Saturday, on Monday night, we shall see. But it's certainly a narrative to watch out for. So yeah, I think they deserve to be where they are for sure.
Well, let's stay with Miami then just for a second, because I think it's very easy to wax lyrical about Indiana, and we will. So if there's any Indiana fans out there, we will be talking passionately about them. But let's stay with Miami, because you touched on the defense. The defense has been very, very impressive, particularly through the playoffs. I go back to that game in Kyle Field, and just how impressive that football was. Who's going to win it? for Miami? Is it going to be the offense? Is Carson Beck going to continue that run of form that Ollie referenced, or is the defense going to step up and stop the Indiana steamroller? And you can't say both.
Alex, do you want to take this one first, or do you want me to jump in, sir?
I'll jump in. I don't mind. Recent history actually goes against the fallacy that defense wins championships. Recent national championship games have been pretty fun to watch over the last few years. They've been high scoring. There have been lots of points offensively. And I think you have to have an offense that can go in and compete. And I struggle sometimes to 100% back this Miami offense the whole time. I think the matchup between Miami's defense and Indiana's offense, because no one's really stopped Indiana's offense for a long time. Not totally shut them down and choke them out. So I think that it could be one of those national championship games where there's a lot of points, a lot of offense played, a lot of wow plays, really fun game to watch. And I think for that reason, Miami's offense has got to turn up.
Wally, do you agree with that sentiment?
Yeah, I think when you look at these two teams, both teams are incredibly strong defensively. There's no getting away from that. They're equally matched defensively, and Indiana's a far superior offense. I think the only way Miami can win in a slugfest is not in a traditional slugfest. It's got to be they've got to somehow overcome Indiana's ground defense, because if Miami can't get the run game going, but that doesn't allow Carson Beck to be as loose as they need him to be in the passing game. And I think that'll end up being the big story of this game is, can Miami run on Indiana, because no one else has? And that was the problem for Oregon. Both times Oregon lost to Indiana, they couldn't get the ground game going on Indiana. So they had to rely on Dante Moore. And they couldn't, like in the biggest of moments, like they needed too much from him. And I think from Carson Beck's perspective, he's done things this year that I wouldn't have expected him to do, where I would have expected him to fall apart, particularly against Ole Miss, that final drive that brought Miami to where we are right now. That was so much un-Carson Beck-like, because the guy has crumbled and fallen at every major pressure point in his career. Do you have the confidence in him to not crumble and fall on Monday night when the lights are the brightest, when the pressure is going to be the most pressure he's faced all season? Because Indiana does some stuff on defense that he will not have seen this year. So it will have to be the offense that wins it for Miami, and we'll get to a prediction later.
Well, you knew that one of these questions was coming up, but my question was, or one of the questions I had in the running order is Carson Beck an enigma? And I think you probably have just answered that question. But let me put it another way, Ollie, because I'm starting to cut up some of the other questions. If you've got 4th and inches in the final seconds of the game, which of the two quarterbacks do you trust the most to get the ball over the line? Is it Carson Beck or is it Mendoza?
It's not even a question. And the question that you originally wrote was which coach, I think, would you trust in that situation?
That's correct,
so the answer is the same, right? And this is, I don't know any Miami fans that listen. I don't know if we have a big Miami. I don't think we have a big Indiana following either. But if we do have a big Miami following, this is going to come across as someone really drilling down on a negative take on this team. And I want to reiterate what a great job I think everyone involved with Miami Hurricanes football has done this season. And when you dig beneath the results and you dig into what this team is as a unit, as a group of men, a group of incredible community-minded individuals, it's a great, great story. Lots of great, great stories. Do I trust Mario Cristobal over Kurt Cignetti with a 4th and 1 with a game on the line situation? We've all seen what Mario Cristobal is. Do I trust Carson Beck versus Fernando Mendoza with the game on the line I do not. I do not. I think Carson Beck has shown in his career over and over again that when the pressure comes, whether it's physical pressure, literal physical pressure from a guy flying off the edge or a 320-pound defensive tackle breaking through that Miami offensive line or Georgia offensive line, if we're going to go back throughout his career, whether it's physical or mental pressure, Carson Beck has never really risen to the occasion. Now he did right at the end of the semi-final game. So maybe I'm wrong, but that's where I look at it. I think Carson Beck doesn't have the mental fortitude to win it with the game on the line for Miami. I think Mario Cristobal has time fortitude to not do something really stupid, and that's just history. That's just fact. Like, this has happened over and over and over again.
And I think Alex is still there, because I occasionally see flashes. Oh yeah, I've just seen him. He's definitely there. Alex, the one thing that commentators, but also I think more importantly, coaches have said this year when they've been looking at Indiana, is that they don't make mistakes. They're a team that just plays exactly to the demands that they're given to by their positional coaches. In that respect, Indiana looks a very, very difficult team to beat because they've just steamrollered everybody else. So you would have to think, and I'm talking to you from a coach's perspective, and those last few moments where you need to win the game, a team that's very well coached and very well disciplined, which Miami is not a well disciplined team, you'd have to fancy Indiana, wouldn't you?
I think in this sport, where to get that in those inches that you need 11 guys to come out and absolutely execute their role, their position, their task, their responsibilities on cue in that moment, in the greatest of pressures. Yeah, you do. You go with the team that has done it over and over and over again this year. A team that, whilst they don't have the hype that team had, but it's a team that reminds me a lot of the LSU team that I was lucky to be in New Orleans when they won 6 years ago. The way they play reminds me so much of that LSU team. They've got their figurehead at quarterback, but it's everyone just doing their job week in, week out, over and over and over again, that's allowed them to get to this point. And you haven't really seen too many chinks in their armor, which you have seen with Miami and you have seen with others. So, yeah, I agree with you. The team that's done it, the team that has the audacity to be able to go out and face that pressure and go, yeah, cool, let's have it. That's the team that I would back in that moment. And to me, Indiana's been that team all year.
Tell me something. Does home field advantage? Because Miami is the first team to have the opportunity to play for a national championship on their home field. I know what Alex thinks about college teams that play in NFL stadiums, but if we put that to one side, that wrath that he's about to unleash on us, does home field advantage make a difference here?
It can create you or it can crush you. There's two ways you can go. And we spoke a lot about this. I was very lucky. I've now been to 2 national championship games. They're obviously nowhere near the spectacle of the national championship game on Monday night. But one of the things I learned from one of my mentors when we were going and heading to the first national championship game we had is that as a day and as a week, it's incredibly tiring for you as an athlete. There are so many demands on you between the media, between family members wanting tickets to come and see you, between people flying into town, old friends flying into town. You double, triple, quadruple that when you're playing for that national championship in your hometown or in the place that you live or the place that you know loads and loads of people. campus will feel really different for the kids at Miami right now. Whereas for Indiana, they're probably already out in South Bay getting acclimatized. And that could be the absolute key for them. They can almost become monk-like in their preparation this week, where they're away from everyone but their closest friends and family. They don't have a million hangers on trying to do things for them. They're not present in their homes and having that. But by the same token, there's nothing better than sleeping in your own bed. And if you're Miami and you can sleep in your own bed and you can treat this like a home game, you can go through the same routines you've done however many times you've played at home this season. Yes, there's more pressure, and you can never recreate the pressure of playing in the national championship game, but you can go back to those familiar comforts, those familiar sights and sounds. You're going to be able to be in your normal locker room. You're going to be able to be in your normal route to the game and everything else that goes with it. So it could go either way. I hope that it elevates Miami, because I think that will make for a better game. And I know we're going to go on to predictions in a bit. So, like I say, I hope it elevates Miami and brings them a little bit closer to where we think Indiana is. But it could also have the opposite effect. It could absolutely crush them if they don't treat it properly.
Oli, you and I talked a couple of weeks ago about the fact that Miami actually is the road game or the away team for this national championship. But I learned today, and I'm not quite sure when they decided upon this, but I learned today that Miami will actually use the home team locker room. And, if you listen to Mario Cristobal's press conference on Monday, he was making it very clear that he did not want to take the team away from any of the usual arrangements that they have for a normal game. And acknowledging Alex's point about tickets and family members and all of that kind of stuff, this doesn't feel like an away game, and I say that tongue in cheek because it clearly isn't, right? But they're clearly not the road team. They do have the home field advantage here.
Yeah, I mean, if they change the goalpost around to give Miami the home dressing room, and they changed I saw earlier in the week that they're going to play in orange instead of the white road uniforms and little things like that. So the dressing room thing I think is a bigger deal than most people understand, because that's a very different game day routine than what you're used to in your home stadium. So that is quite a significant factor. I think if you were looking at Hard Rock as a fortress, then home field advantage is a real thing. They've already lost at Hard Rock this year. They lost a night game in the week, a Friday night game against Louisville. Not a great Louisville team this season by any stretch of the imagination. So you're not talking about a fortress. You're also talking about a stadium which is not going to be 95% full of Miami fans. Indiana's going to travel. There's ticket allocations. Indiana fans are going to bring a lot of people to this game. So I don't think it's a home field advantage in as such as the Conference USA Championship game is a home field advantage, because the team that finished on top of the table actually plays the home game. Same with the American Conference. It's not quite that sort of home field advantage, I don't think, for Miami. A lot of different things this week.
Well, I mean, Miami rarely pack out the Hard Rock Stadium, right? So maybe it was a slightly unusual experience for them. Without, there definitely is going to be a full house, and then certainly, the build up and everything is going to be very, very different. So I totally acknowledge Alex's point about, for example, tomorrow there's pretty much a whole day of media activities, and I know that I was on it's up at across at Coral Gables this afternoon, and the campus is jumping. And I don't know what it's like in a normal Friday, but I'm pretty sure there wasn't that number of people on the campus and that level of. There certainly was nobody in class, that's for sure. Right, let's wrap this up with some predictions. This is where you guys earn your crusts. So I don't know who wants to go first. Alex is still in the dark. He has gone all Adam Rittenberg on us. But let's have who you think is going to win, and let's have a score prediction just to nail your colours to the mast.
I'm going to go Indiana, 42-21.
Oh, so it's going to be a proper blowout, which is what I was going to be intrigued to see whether any of you thought it was going to be a close game. Oliver, close game, do you think?
It would be nice to have a close national championship. Most of them aren't. Let's be honest. We spend so much time denigrating some of the teams that get into the college football playoff for their inability to keep games close. But let's be honest, we don't often have a close national championship game. I think it'll be closer than Alex's prediction. I do think Indiana wins. I'm still trying to work out the score in the top of my brain. So I'm going to give you a score here, but I will also have a more nuanced prediction on Monday that you can find if you subscribe to the Pro Football Network College Football email newsletter. So I'm going to go with Indiana 28, Miami 21.
Oh, really? Oh, that surprised me. I mean, I think Indiana probably gets in the 30s here. Question mark is how many can Miami score? I was quite impressed with the Miami's run game against Ole Miss, but the question mark is, well, it was against Ole Miss, so how effective was it? But they certainly did. It is clear that they're going to give the ball to the running backs a lot. So 35 Indiana, and I'm not sure. It could be 14 for Miami. I mean, it could be quite a chasm. And I guess the question then is, just to wrap this up, how do they keep it a close game? And I know that sounds like a really, really simple question, but is that Miami containing the Indiana offense, or is it Indiana got off to a slow start?
I think it's I don't think Cignetti knows what a slow start is. I don't think guys are anything slow his entire life. Miami has to contain. They have to contain. Keep it close. They have to contain. If Indiana gets 2 scores ahead, that's game over.
There you go. And
I think just building quickly on Ollie's point there. I think Miami needs takeaways early on. As you say, Kirk Cignetti is going to come out and he's going to go balls to the wall, highly attacking early on in this game. Miami needs to tip that in their favour and get some takeaways and score, and that way, then they can keep it close.
Well, I mean, if Miami start the way they did against Ole Miss, and to put this in perspective, Miami could have been out of sight by half time, but 10 penalties for 99 yards was kept Ole Miss in it. So if they're ill-disciplined like that in the first half, Indiana is going to be out of sight by the time that the marching bands come on at half time. That's all the time we have for in the podcast. Bizarrely, we spent more time talking about Carson Beck than we did Mendoza, which may disappoint our huge legion of Indiana fans.
I don't think we've got any fans in that part of the world.
Well, there's a challenge, right? There's a challenge if you're an Indiana fan. Please let us know that you're listening and how disappointed you were that we didn't talk a lot about Fernando Mendoza. Anyway, that's all the time we've got on this episode. Thank you to Oli and Alex for a late one for them and taking the time out of their busy schedules. Thank you for listening and supporting us. Stay safe and well, and catch you all next time in a new football season. Thank you.